The Doctor Is In is a co-production of Ave Maria Radio and EWTN Radio and carried across the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
Hi, Dr. Ray. I love your show.
Let me show you what it looks like to be a holy person, and maybe you'll want to be holy like me.
You just patted yourself on the back.
You seem like an honest guy.
But you're a psychologist. Do you have some advice?
I don't know. I'm not going to tell you what to do.
You're my second favorite Italian person.
I think you have a way of making people feel relaxed.
She needs to feel the consequences of being a jerk.
I was looking for a deeper answer.
Obviously, I'm a failure. Obviously, I'm inept.
You are awesome. Keep up the good fight, my friend.
Now, from the studios of Living Bread Radio Network in Canton, Ohio, the hometown of Mother Angelica, here's Dr. Ray.
Well, I got a question here. They said to me, how do you keep people from always asking you for advice? You know what, out in public or something like that, I see a friend or something, somebody says, hey, can I ask you something? It'll only take a minute. Now, that's a key. If it's only going to take a minute, it ain't going to take a minute. Because if I were to time that, they would be 3 sentences into it in a minute. So how do I do it? I figured it out. No, you don't have to be rude. And you don't ignore. That's rude too. In the morning, I take one leg of my pant leg and I tuck it into my sock. And I wear it all day like that. And there's something about that picture that keeps people from thinking that you're competent, that you have something that could help them. Works a lot. Nice to have you here on The Doctor Is In. This is the Monday variant of The Doctor Is In. This is E-Person Monday. I call it person. I don't call it male. No. Not toxic language here. Very sensitive, nurturant, emotive, toxic sensitivity on my part. E-Person Monday. A big stack of emails sitting there. We get them from both places. We get them from the radio show. We also get them, we. Notice how I did that? Forced teaming? It's not we. I get them from both places. I get them from the radio show and I get them from the TV show. So there's a stack sitting right in front of me here. And I feel guilty because if it goes too far, typically either the problem has resolved itself or it's gotten terribly worse and I didn't help anybody. But I'll do what I can to get to them. I was at a talk, this was some years ago, and the guy that picked me up was an emergency room doc. One of the things he said that was frightening him, people were coming in with psychosis, loss of contact with reality, serious agitation, delusional, confused, etc. And the only trigger that he identified, now again, you can't know for sure because some psychoses just occur because of age and brain changes. But he said what he's seeing is more chronic marijuana users with very serious psychotic episodes which are resistant to standard medication. Now, this is, back then, I just had heard about this, was years ago, as more and more states were saying, okay, marijuana's fine. It's a good thing. Come on, we got to have everybody have it. Let's do it. Come on. Well, again, like everything else, there's unintended consequences, and sometimes they're negative unintended consequences. This study just came out. I'm quoting the study, and they said, very worrying. Marijuana use among teens brings higher risk of psychotic disorders. A study found teenagers who use marijuana are at a higher risk of suffering from psychiatric issues, news that has researchers deeply concerned. Study was published in the JAMA Health Forum on Friday. Showed young people who used cannabis had more of a chance of being diagnosed with psychotic disorders, anxiety, and depression as the years passed. Now, this chronic marijuana use does something to the brain. It does. And this isn't your daddy's marijuana, if you will, or maybe your grandpa's marijuana. You know, it had a low percentage of tetrahydrocannabinol, THC, the main active cannabinol of the many cannabinols in marijuana. No, this stuff is much more potent. And it could be laced. I mean, you just keep in mind, when you're buying marijuana off the street, you're not getting a label that says, here's the ingredients from most to least. Quote the study again. This cohort study, in other words, a study, a group homogeneous, kind of similar, found that adolescent cannabis use was associated with increased risk of incident psychiatric disorders, particularly psychotic and bipolar disorders. These results could inform the development of clinical and educational interventions for parents, adolescents, and clinicians, as well as protective policies to prevent or delay adolescent cannabis use in the context of expanding cannabis legalization. Upon reviewing the findings, a guy named Dr. Ryan Sultan, a Columbia University psychiatrist, said, this is very, 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 he used 3 varies there, worrying. Health data from 460,000 teenagers in Northern California was analyzed. Young people were tracked until they reached 25. Now, this is interestingly enough. That, okay, so this counters something I just said at the beginning. I'm glad they took this into account. The teens who had symptoms of mental illness prior to using the marijuana were excluded from the study. Okay, so that means you eliminated a percentage of those kids who would have developed these kinds of psychiatric issues with or without the marijuana. The young people who said they used marijuana doubled their risk, of developing bipolar disorder and psychotic disorders, including schizophrenia. I will continue to quote them. Both bipolar and psychotic disorders are among the most serious and disabling of mental illnesses, the article said. The U.S. cannabis market is an industry with a value in the tens of billions. But the societal cost of schizophrenia has been calculated to be $350 billion a year. When I was in grad school, they said that hospital beds, meaning any kind of inpatient setting, were filled by more people diagnosed schizophrenic than anything else. Now, this is really bad here. Columbia University's Irving Medical Center. Now, I don't know if that's a survey from Columbia University. It's a rather liberal university. Or they did an actual survey widespread, well beyond the reaches of the university. They reported that approximately 1 in 5 high schoolers use cannabis. That's really terrible. 1 in 5, that's 20%. Not so long ago, that wasn't anywhere near that. Scientists are especially concerned because today's cannabis products contain 2 to 3 times more THC, the ingredient that causes a high, than in the past, making them more potent. And previous studies have shown that using cannabis during adolescence, when the brain is still developing critical neural connections, may have lasting, permanent effects on cognitive functions. We've had calls in this program. I've had people in my office that they have a son or daughter who they know is using marijuana. And they're using it with certain friends. And they have yet to form the resolve of, you can't go near those friends. That's not going to happen. I'm not giving you the car because I can't trust you with it. See, they're afraid to do that. And I want to say, what are you letting them burn out their brain? What would be enough for you to take a strong stand as a parent? Sometimes you got to take strong stands and then take the results. Let me see what else this is. Okay, no, there was that must have been a different study that I read, that something like in the last 20 years, the amount of teens who regularly use marijuana has increased tenfold. Let's see if it's in this study. I'm scrolling to here. No, it's not in this one. It exploded. It just flat out exploded. So much for the mindset that says, well, if we make it readily available, people won't go underground and they won't buy it on the black market, and therefore you'll have less use of it. Every single time they legalize a psychoactive substance, use radically rises. Yeah, it just goes to show you there's other forces. But for those of you parents listening, be aware, be vigilant. Know who your kids are hanging out with to the best of your ability, because they can get pretty sneaky. And if you find out that there is, in fact, chemical use, you got to take some pretty strong stands. You have to. You got no choice. You can't worry about them being mad at you. You can't worry about them doing whatever they're going to do to resist you. You have to at least live with the comfort that I did what I could to save them from themselves. I can't let you out of my sight if you're going to do that kind of stuff. Okay, that was a long opening monologue. Get to the e-persons when we come back here on The Doctor Is In.
Underwritten in part by the following nonprofit.
Do you feel as though life is flying past you? Are you desperate for a way to find moments of peace and quiet? Lord, Teach Me to Pray, the free Ignatian prayer series, will open your heart to His voice, to the peace you are seeking and the only love that fulfills the human heart, Jesus. God is calling you to true joy, knowing Jesus personally. Lord, Teach Me to Pray is free. Go to LordTeachMeToPray.com, click on the red box, order the Lord, Teach Me to Pray series now. Go to LordTeachMeToPray.com. The following program is brought to you in part by MyCatholicWill.com. Surveys show that more than half of Americans do not have a will. At MyCatholicWill.com, it takes as little as 15 minutes to write your will and secure a legacy of faith. MyCatholicWill.com is the exclusive online destination for creating a Catholic will. The process of writing a will is simple and now more accessible than ever. MyCatholicWill.com, a legacy of faith for those you love.
Steve and Janet Ray here, announcing we are back in the Holy Land, ready to introduce you to our favorite places in the world, the land where God walked. Mass at the most holy sites, pray the mysteries of the Rosary where they happened, and experience the Bible in vivid color. We have led over 100 groups through this land, sharing the whole story of salvation. Of all the pilgrimages in all of the world, this is the one you should not miss.
Find the Ave Maria Radio travel tab at AveMariaRadio.net.
The wisdom of Mother Angelica.
You know, I have a very hard time sometimes, and I'm so frustrated. I mean, frustrated. Somebody says, how'd you do all this, Mother? I say, I didn't. And they look at me, The Lord did it. God does everything. Without me, He said, you do nothing.
For more information on Mother Angelica, visit Religious Catalog at EWTNRC.com.
Hey, Catholic parents, could you use a break? Parenting is hard, especially at this time of year, and burnout can steal the joy right out of family life.
Join us, Dr. Greg and Lisa Popchak, on Wednesday, March 18th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern for a free webinar sponsored by Ave Maria Radio titled Reclaiming the Joy of Parenting, Overcoming Burnout.
Discover practical, faith-filled ways to recharge your batteries and reclaim the joy of parenting. Register today at AveMariaRadio.net. Don't miss it. Your family's worth it.
Putting the common back in front of sense. For something to be common, it's got to be shared by the majority. Maybe the better way to put it is good sense. Dr. Ray Guarendi here, program Doctors In, Monday through Friday, 1 o'clock Eastern Time, co-production, EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network and Ave Maria Radio Communications. With my producer man there today, Andrew Kruchek, even though we're not taking phone calls because we are devoting this time to the many, many e-persons that come in. Hi, Dr. Ray. My 3-year-old daughter prefers me over my husband, and it's really disrupting our family harmony. Well, first of all, let me intrude right there. Not unusual for little kids, little preschoolers, to prefer one parent over the other. Who knows the mind of a little kid? Stuff goes in there, they perceive it, does a couple of backflips, spins around, goes on some kind of journey through a pile of neurons, obstacle course, and it just comes out as behavior. So, first of all, age 3, I'm not worried about that. However, in this case, it's a little more extreme presentation. I'm still not concerned about anything psychiatric or psychological because I happen to know this mother. However, it is more than just I prefer. She's very sensitive and anxious. Okay. And we have a hard time discerning whether or not she is truly struggling or if she's just being nasty to her dad. Well, if she's anxious and she's being nasty, which obviously she is, does that make being nasty okay? Parents will do this. They will say, well, I don't know if he's really afraid or if he's just being defiant. I don't know how much he's emotionally struggling with this and how much he's really just being mean to his sister. You got to deal with the behavior. You can't say, well, therefore it's okay. Now, if you say, well, yeah, but no, I don't mean that. I mean, I want to talk to her about this. Well, no doubt you've tried. She's 3. So how are you going to reason with a 3-year-old? Now, the other catch in this is that she could be emotionally struggling because she doesn't want dad around. She doesn't want dad to help her out. And we'll get to that in a second later in the letter. And so her emotions are following her misbehavior. They're not the cause of her misbehavior. She doesn't want something. She doesn't like it. And therefore she gets distressed when it looks like it could happen. She will say things like, I don't like boys. I just like girls like mommy and grandma. Okay, so it's the old in your face, Dad. She refuses to let him help her, like getting her a snack or taking her down from her booster seat, and she will cry hysterically. Yeah, I don't know. I'd be nervous about using the word hysterically with a little kid. I mean, they can cry. They can cry all the way out to the end of the hysterical continuum and be normal. Okay, let's do a little what the shrinks call operant conditioning. She refuses to let him help her, like getting her a snack. Okay. Daddy could say, well, okay, I won't get you a snack. And then Mommy can say, yeah, I won't either, because I want Daddy to get you a snack. Now then she's going to decide. Is this snack worth putting up with Dad? Now, the first 8 times they try that, she'll just forego the snack. But my guess would be number 9 or so is, wait a minute here. I'm losing a lot of snacks. So that's the first thing. Or taking her down from her booster seat. Oh, okay. Well, she wants to get down from her booster seat. She wants Mommy to do it. Well, Daddy could say, well, I want to take you down, but if you won't let me do it, you may have to sit there for a while. And Mommy will come over and say, yeah, you're going to have to sit here because I'm not going to get you down. Daddy will get you down. And we'll see how long she stays. I got a feeling it's not going to be very long. I would wonder if there's too much rescuing going on here. This little one, and again, it's 3-year-old behavior. It's not anything. 3-year-olds all kinds of crap. It's something that is just part of her habits, mood, makeup for right now. At 3 doesn't mean anything for 6. But I would guess there's been some, okay, Daddy won't do it, so Daddy backs off, and then Mom does it. Yeah, that's kind of rewarding her. She throws a fit when he attempts to play with her or show her any kind of affection. I would not allow that. There's no way if I'm going to kiss you and you're going to... I would have Mom say, you go sit on the steps. I think it's more powerful if Mom does it because it makes it look like, see, Daddy's a bad guy. No, Mom's the one taking the heat for the discipline. Now, shrinks might say, has there been abuse? Has there been some kind of abuse here? I mean, for her to react that way to her father being anywhere near her, she would, oh, my, this really raises a red flag regarding some kind of inappropriate conduct with this little girl. Okay, that could be, except there's a couple things going on. One, as I said, I do know the family somewhat, and I would not suspect that. But here's the other one, the big one. When she is alone with my husband, she is great with him. It is only when we're all together that she mistreats him. So there's something in her dynamic which says, I want Mommy to do it. Now, maybe Dad works a lot, and she's just used to having Mom taking care of her needs. That's understandable. Or maybe Daddy just works normal, and Mom's there. Understandable. So some kids are going to say, I prefer Mom doing this. And some kids, like this little girl, are going to say, not only do I prefer Mom doing this, I don't want Dad to do it, and I'm going to show you how much I can get upset when he tries. Okay. Then at that point, you make it be costly for her. Give you an example. When I did evaluations for the Head Start programs years back, consulted to a number of Head Start programs. Every once in a while, we get a kid who would not at all talk in class. Not a word. I'd interview Mom or Dad and find out, oh, she's a jabbermouth at home. Oh, okay, so it's very selective here. So I usually offered a couple of ideas. Again, behavior modification type strategies, which is and usually more often it was a girl because they get more timid. You ask her, do you want to set the table for snack? And she won't say anything. And you say, oh, okay, well, I'll pick somebody else then. Maybe next time. And you allow her to have privileges that would you like to be first in line? You want to be first in line? Oh, okay, well, you're not saying anything. All you have to do is say yes. Nothing. Just stare. Okay, well, I'll ask somebody else to be first in line. Do you want to sit next to me during story time? Just tell me yes. Okay, well, I'll have somebody else sit next to me. And you make it worth their while to speak. It's a parallel situation to what's going on here. You make it worth this little girl's while to let Daddy be kind, be affectionate, be helpful to her. That's what you got to do. Okay. Not an unusual scenario. Put that there. I'm looking at the clock here, and it looks like it's going to start music here very, very shortly. Let me see. Where is that music, Andrew? No? Am I reading it wrong? Okay. There it is. I knew it. This clock's a little off in here. Better use my phone. I'm Dr. Ray. Thank you for joining me here on The Doctor Is In on this E-Person Monday.
60 on 10 with Monsignor Charles Pope.
The third commandment, remember to keep holy the Sabbath day. You know, of all the commandments, it might seem that we would get this one right. After all, it commands us to rest one day. But so often we're off to our own pursuits. God asks us to take one day to stop, reflect, rejoice, spend time with Him and with our family. But so often we're running everywhere else. It's also a day for worship. The book of Leviticus says, 6 days work shall be done, but on the seventh day is a Sabbath of solemn rest and a holy convocation. You shall do no work. It is the Sabbath of the Lord. And the book of Hebrews says that we should not neglect to meet together, as is a habit of some. And so again, we're asked by God to spend time reflecting and worshiping, and likewise spend time with our family. The third commandment, remember to keep holy the Sabbath day.
For more about the 10 Commandments, visit EWTNRC.com.
Christ is the answer, with Father John Riccardo.
You know, maybe we need to ask ourselves, do we really know Jesus? Maybe another way to ask that would be, how familiar are you with the Gospels? When I was living in D.C., I was on the plane taking a late flight home, sitting next to a young girl. She was probably 16, 17. I had my collar on, and we got talking, and she said somehow in the course of the conversation, she acknowledged that she was running away from home and was in the midst of an awful lot of difficulties that were going on. Her story seemed to be remarkably akin to the story of the prodigal son, which we just heard this past Sunday at Mass, huh? And so I started to speak a little bit about that with her. And I said, you sound a little bit like the younger son in the story of the prodigal son. And she looked at me like I was from Mars. And I said, are you not familiar with the story of the prodigal son? And she says, no, never heard it. And I just looked at her and I says, oh my goodness, are you in for a wonderful evening?
This is Cy Kellett. Join me for Catholic Answers Live. It's 2 hours dedicated to Catholic apologetics and evangelization. Designed for Catholics and non-Catholics alike, it's your opportunity to hear from and talk with some of the leading apologists and theologians in the church today. You've got questions? We've got Catholic Answers. Catholic Answers Live, weekdays, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio.
Continuing with the ePersons here on The Doctor Is In on ePerson Monday. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate the company. Just got some stats from EWTN. They have 400 and some stations in their network. This show is carried by 400 and some, 500 and some worldwide. It's also on Sirius Satellite Channel 130, as well as all the apps for all of our networks and independent stations, a lot of that stuff. And I have since tallied my overall listening audience, and it has grown. It has grown by 34%. It's a lot, you know that? It's up around 131 now. Yeah. So, and most of those are people, receptionists and folks like that who sit in the studio or the office, and they have to listen because the radio is on in their area. Hello, Dr. Ray. My sons, ages 4 to 9, love their foam swords and toy guns. Yeah, I did too. I used to make guns out of sticks. I had these big sticks, and they fired off rockets. They enact all kinds of battles and adventures. Get out. You don't see girls doing this. And don't tell me it's because they're not socialized into that gender-conforming role. Her son is 4, and he's doing this. I don't know if that's enough time to establish gender constructs. I think the love of battles is natural for boys, and from what I have read, knowing that good can defeat evil is important. And here's where the big but comes in. But is there a way for my husband and me to make sure they don't glorify violence? Yeah. Don't let them watch a whole lot of violence on TV. Don't let them play video games that are violent. Keep the glorification of violence away from them. You don't want them to glorify violence? Don't put them in front of stuff that glorifies violence. Now, the rough and tumble play of boys, the sword fighting and the playing war. I used to play, when I was a kid, there were 2 World War II series. One was Gallant Men, and the other was Combat. Anybody remember Combat? Sergeant Saunders, Vic Morrow, who was tragically killed in filming a movie, Lieutenant Hanley. And I used to go in the backyard, and if I found any kind of divot anywhere, that was my foxhole. That's where I stayed. That was my trench. And I set up my sticks. I think I also had cap guns or something. And I played those games because, in fact, that's just little normal boy play. If that's going to lead to anything, it's not that. It's going to be a whole panoply of violence and violent type images and entertainment assaulting a kid. Or bad parenting or unstable family life. But the fact that kids are growing up in a good, loving home and little boys are going to go out and do sword fighting and squirt guns at each other. Man, remember those super soakers? I had a friend who had one of those, and I thought, whoa, that is really cool. All I got is this little squirt gun. I can't even reach him because he can fire at me from 30 feet away. No, I would not worry about this at all, especially if you're a loving, stable home and you keep out, which I'm sure you do because you're writing something that is related to either a radio show or a TV show on Catholic media. So my guess would be you're trying to be a really good, loving parent. This is interesting, though. She says, my sons age range 4 to 9 years old, which probably means there's more than 2 of them. So, once again, we've got so many parents worried and nervous. You know, it's interesting. Kids used to play much more what we would now label aggressive or quote-unquote violent tinged games in the past. And the level of violence in our schools, in various places and gatherings was much, much less. Much less. And that was before the advent of soaking them in violent images and pictures and games and entertainment. You know, my wife and I will watch a show that we stream at night when we cuddle down. And the commercials for upcoming series and movies are just, they go beyond violent. They are just dark. They appeal to the most demonic, evil kind of stuff that humans are capable of. That's the stuff that is launched at our young people. And it's no wonder that some of them are so desensitized to violence. It's no shock at all. Garbage in, garbage out. The rough and tumble play of little boys is nothing along those lines. Nothing. So I wouldn't even be nervous about that, Mom. Let me see what else I got here. That's that one. All right. I'm having trouble coping with my 19-year-old son. Here's our background. I was a single parent until I remarried 6 years ago. Other than that, it's just been my 19-year-old son and I trying to make through life together. I've done my best to provide a stable life for him. After the divorce, I went back to school to get a nursing degree, and I've been at my current job for 15 years. Felix has always gone to good Catholic schools. He was an altar server. He played club and high school soccer. Even got offers to play in college. 2 weeks after accepting an offer, he did a complete 180 and said he didn't want to play. I was caught off guard. He's now at a local university, graduated high school with a GPA of 3.8 from a very good Catholic school, but he's bombing in college. Gives no little or no effort. He now says he wants to go to the Navy and train to be a SEAL. Suddenly says this is his dream. He's never mentioned it before in his life. Well, who knows what inspired him. I've spoken about how difficult it will be to get through the training, and the odds are good that he may not make it. Okay. And, now this is me saying this, being 19 and full of vigor, he refuses to accept that he won't make it, and he becomes argumentative. He has no backup plan. I understand that he has his own life, make his own decisions, but I'm scared for him. Why? I'm feeling a little used as well, since I'm paying for college, and he's just blowing it. Dr. A? Any ideas? Well, yeah, I do, but I'm going to get interrupted by this music playing because it's a hard break. So I've read the situation. I will summarize the situation after the break. It's Dr. Ray here, and the doctor is in on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network, production of Ave Maria Radio Communications.
Good day, friends, and welcome to this segment of The Crux of the Matter. I'm Father Wade Menezes of the Fathers of Mercy. Today I'd like to provide a brief lesson on the proper placement of the tabernacle within the church. While this has been a topic of some confusion over the years, it really shouldn't be, since the Church's teaching on the subject is quite clear. All we have to do is look to Pope Benedict XVI's 2007 apostolic exhortation, Sacramentum Caritatis, the Sacrament of Charity, specifically number 69. In this document, the Holy Father provides a nice summation of all that the Church has said on this subject since the Second Vatican Council. The Holy Father states that in churches which do not have a Blessed Sacrament chapel, and where the high altar with its tabernacle is still in place, it is appropriate to continue to use this structure for the reservation and adoration of the Eucharist, taking care not to place the celebrant's chair in front of it. In new churches, it is good to position the Blessed Sacrament chapel close to the sanctuary, and where this is not possible, it is preferable to locate the tabernacle in the sanctuary, in a sufficiently elevated place, at the center of the apse area, or in another place where it will be equally conspicuous. Attention to these considerations, the Holy Father continues, will lend dignity to the tabernacle, which must always be cared for. As faithful Catholics, the main point to remember here is that the correct positioning of the tabernacle contributes to the recognition of Christ's real presence in the Blessed Sacrament, so that the place where the Holy Eucharist is reserved, marked by a sanctuary lamp, should be readily visible to everyone upon entering the church, and not in some obscure location. This has been The Crux of the Matter. I'm Father Wade Menezes. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for joining me here on The Doctor Is In, ePerson Monday. I read this ePerson before the break, and if you're just coming on, I'll probably summarize very quickly. 19-year-old son. Mom raised him pretty much as a single mother. He has always been pretty responsible, good Catholic school, got a 3.8, played soccer, everything. Even got an offer to play in college. But he accepted the offer, and 2 weeks later, he didn't want to play. Mom couldn't believe it. I was caught off guard, but I accepted his decision. He's now at a local university, where he's bombing out, she says, little or no effort toward his grades, and he says he wants to go to the Navy, and he wants to train to be a Navy SEAL. Mom's thinking, oh, boy, you realize how unrealistic that is? You might as well go to the pros for all the chance you're going to have to make it through SEAL training. Well, she's tried to talk sense. Well, it's okay. That's not a good way to put it. She's tried to talk her perspective to him, and she says he becomes very argumentative because he interprets that as saying, you don't think I can do it. Well, whether he can or whether he can't, if he wants to join the Navy, he's going to find out. Reality will confirm or deny whether he can make it as a Navy SEAL. Now, Mom, again, she says this is him and her for 15 years. And so very much of her identity, her responsibility, everything about him is very connected to him, and I understand that. So now she's feeling like he's veering into things that I think may not work out for him, and I want to save him. I understand that. But at this point, if he does join the Navy, Ma, you got to be supportive. My son joined the Army when he was 20. Just that's it. He went to a year of college and said, no, college isn't for me. I want to join the Army. So he did. He has never mentioned being a Navy SEAL before in his life. He says this is his dream. He has no backup plan. Well, yes and no. I mean, if he joins the Navy and he doesn't make it as a SEAL, he's still in the Navy. And I suppose he could sabotage being in the Navy, but you have to wait to see how that plays out. She closes with this. I understand that he has his own life and he can make decisions, but I'm scared for him and so frustrated with him. I'm also feeling a bit used as well, since I'm paying for college and he's just blowing it. Well, Ma, whatever you paid for this semester, are you going to pay for next semester? I mean, if he's basically said, I don't want to go to college, and I'm not putting any effort in college. So you paid for college, and he, in fact, didn't keep up his end of the college contract. That's it. You're not going to pay for a second semester, are you? So, yeah, in a sense, you were used, but you don't have to keep being used. Now, all that said, I think it would do you well to keep yourself calm over his reach for being a SEAL. If that's what he wants, go for it. I think if you take that attitude, he won't be frustrated with you, you won't be frustrated with him, and you'll probably reduce the friction between the two of you, because you don't want that. It sounds like you've been a very involved, loving mom, very responsible for all these years, and now he's saying, I don't want to do any of those things that you thought I was going to do. I want to go do this. Okay, son. Suit yourself. And if you take that attitude, I think you will... Well, you'll get along better with him, that's for sure. And you can let reality do whatever teaching it's going to do. Because clearly, he doesn't want to hear your idea of reality at this point. My wife and I decided we were not going to pay for our children, those who were capable of college, going away to college. We thought that was not a good idea. We had local colleges. They could live at home. However, my daughter, at age 17, decided she wanted an Army career. And she went into ROTC, training to be an officer, at a women's leadership program in a college in Virginia. Virginia Women's Institute Leadership, I think it was called. Stanton, Ohio, or Stanton, Virginia. We couldn't do anything about it. She wasn't 18 yet, but she had complete and total financial support as well as spending money. And she was in an officer track. Well, that was many, many years ago, and she is now up for promotion to colonel. She made that decision when she was 17. We said, okay, well, you write it out, Hannah, see where it goes. We saw where it went. So, that said, I'd recommend that's a pretty safe approach with your son. Let's see where it goes. And I kind of admire the fact that he's saying college isn't for me and I want to do that. Sweet. Good enough. And by the way, what happened to my son who went into the Army at age 20? He served 10 years, Sergeant G, but he decided he didn't want to be a lifer. And he got out about a year ago. And he's in training for several trades. I think he's going to do very well. Okie dokie.
We don't have a lot of time on this earth. We weren't meant to spend it this way.
The doctor is in. Do you own popular index mutual funds or ETFs? If so, you're automatically owned shares of companies that conflict with your moral beliefs. Ave Maria mutual funds are managed to conform to pro-life and pro-family values. Long-term investors can invest in the no-load Ave Maria mutual funds. The experienced professional portfolio managers make decisions based on investment fundamentals and pro-life values. You can learn more about Ave Maria mutual funds today at 866-AVE-MARIA or visit AveMariaFunds.com.
Believers who respond to God's Word and become members of Christ's body become intimately united to Him, the Catholic Catechism tells us. Through the sacraments, those who believe are intimately united with Christ in a very real and hidden way. The body's unity does not do away with the diversity of its members, who engage in a diversity of functions. The unity of the mystical body triumphs over all human divisions. There are no Jews, no Greeks, no slave, no free man. All are one in the body of Christ. Christ is the head of the body of the Church, the principle of creation and redemption. We are united with Christ in His Passover. All His members must strive to resemble Him until Christ is formed in them. This is Peggy Stanton, and this has been the Order of Malta's Minute with the Catechism.
He was a pope, a saint, and a doctor of the Church.
Matthew Bunson and the Doctors of the Church.
Pope St. Gregory I the Great is one of only 4 popes honored as the Great. Among his many achievements was sending missionaries across Northern Europe, especially St. Augustine of Canterbury, who brought Christ to the people of England. In a pun, Pope Gregory called the English people angels. He died in 604.
For more about the Doctors of the Church, visit doctorsofthechurch.com.
That one right now. This is Dr. Ray. This is The Doctor Is In. This is E-Person Monday. And I'm scrolling through my phone to see where we're at here. Hey, Dr. Ray, I really enjoy listening to your show. Okay, she didn't say that. I put that in there because, because all these E-Persons, I don't ever get that. I mean, all these other email shows, they always say, thank you for your show, you're doing a wonderful job. I say, I don't get any of that, so I have to put it in there. I'd like to ask a question concerning your little talk. All right, I hope that's not meaning demeaning talk. I hope it means brief talk on Thursday. Why so many young people are leaving the church. I was wondering if it's most likely because of the fast-paced culture, making them feel bored at Mass. No, I didn't say that was most likely that. I said it was a factor. I said there were many, many factors, not the least of which is the misshaping of souls by our secular humanist, I don't even call it progressive, I call it regressive attitudes that now dominate everything. That's the biggest factor. The culture is, in so many ways, not God-seeking. Okay. If it's most likely because of the fast-paced culture, making them feel bored at Mass, that's a factor. It is a factor. If you're in a culture that says go, get, do, have, and you go to Mass, and you got Father up there, lift up your hearts. Now, he doesn't talk like that, but that's what they hear. Here's her question. Then why is the Latin Mass and traditional Catholicism drawing so, and she'd put so as in S-O-O-O-O-O, so many young people today, when it is sometimes even slower and old compared to the Novus Ordo, the new Mass? The Latin Mass I've been attending is bursting with young people, and they are on fire for the traditional liturgy and faith. I'd be really interested in hearing what you think. Well, you're going to hear it. What you say is true. The Latin Mass really draws a lot of large families. It draws a lot of faith-filled families, certainly. And they love the traditional liturgy that they see as very reverent. But that is a small subset of those in the Catholic Church. If you were to say, let's expand that, let's make it all Masses are in Latin, all Masses are going to be traditional, my guess would be you're going to still have the Exodus. Maybe even more so. So what you're asking, Jacinta, is why are those Masses bursting at the seams and young people are fleeing the Novus Ordo, the regular Mass that we all go to most of the time? Because we're talking a little bit apples and oranges here. The mass exodus of leaving the church by so many young people is in part due to the fact that they are not moved, if you will, by the solemnity, the peace, the quiet, the reverence of the Catholic Mass compared to everything else they have in their lives. And they would not, in the main, might be some, not very many, would not be attracted to the Latin Mass. The Latin Mass appeals to a certain group of Catholics, typically more traditional, typically more reverentially liturgical, typically larger families, typically with a whole bunch of kids that are young. So yes, there is that element. And my understanding is, and I think I recall some surveys along those lines, that those people who are in fact attracted to the Latin Mass are truly seeking in their mind to experience reverence as they see it, with chanting and solemnity that they might not see in some parishes regarding the Novus Ordo. And I just go to the Novus Ordo. I rarely go to Latin Mass, but that's not because I disparage, of course. How can I disparage the Latin Mass? It is simply because I relate well to the new Mass, if you want to call it that, and it feeds me because I don't expect to be fed. I expect to go there to worship, and in so doing, I'm fed. So that said, I don't think it's a counter. What's the word I'm looking for? Contradiction that some small subset of Catholics are flocking to the traditional Latin Mass, where the largest numbers of young Catholics are leaving the Catholic Church. I think that says it. And if one makes the argument, well, wait a minute then. If you're attracting people with the Latin Mass, well, why not make it more widespread? And I think there would be a limit. I'm just speculating now. I think there would be a limit. Let's say that you offer 5 Latin Masses in a diocese. Maybe 10, okay, because depending on the size of the diocese. 10 Latin Masses, and you have 90 parishes. My guess would be that the Latin Masses would not all be necessarily so filled. Just my guess. I'm speculating. Because they appeal deeply to a certain subset of faith-filled Catholics. Now, I'm looking at the clock, and I got about a minute and a half, so there is no way I'm going to get anything else in here. Let me just take a couple of questions here that people ask me. Okay. Dr. A, I heard you talk that it is hard to have your feelings hurt. How'd you get to that point? Well, I think there's a lot of factors, but it started when I was little, when I was a kid. I used to bring the wrong tools to my dad. Yeah, that's what did it. No, my dad would. Oh, he'd get frustrated with me. Ray, do you know what a Phillips head is as opposed to a flathead? Me, Dad? He wouldn't demean me. Not Dad. Pop was a loving father. Do you think your own children, Dr. Ray, were spoiled? Now, my wife asked me that. And I remember thinking, I think most of them just naturally smell like that, you know? I mean, just especially the boys, okay? So anyway, answering a couple of questions that people approached me with. Hey, I do appreciate the company during this E-Person Monday. I appreciate Andrew Kruchek, all he does over there at Ave Maria, and I certainly appreciate you keeping me company. All 136 of you. We're climbing up. Walk with God. It is the infinite walk, the only infinite walk. All other walks will end in this life.
For information on Dr. Ray's presentations, books, and CDs, visit drray.com and follow him on Facebook and Instagram. The Doctor is In is a co-production of Ave Maria Radio and EWTN Radio and carried across the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.